Hello, folks. Thank you for attending today's webinar, Configuring Voltera D-Series Amplified Loudspeaker Controllers with VenueTune software. My name's Dave Howden, and I'm Technical Services Manager for Biamp's Loudspeaker Solutions Group based in Chester, Pennsylvania. A little bit about myself, been part of the Biamp family now for 5+ years, but prior to that, I had about a 21-year run with community loudspeakers before being brought into the Biamp family. So let's get going here. So today's agenda. First, we're going to have a hardware review of Voltera D and DM, to talk about power levels and power sharing capabilities. We'll get into the basics of networking, just enough to get you connected and programmed up. There was an earlier webinar a couple weeks ago by David Berkey that dove more into the networking and the Tessera side of configuring Voltera D and DM amps, and that can be found on the Biamp YouTube channel if you want to get deeper into it. So I will be omitting some of the the more detailed fine granularity details as it relates to Tessera use. We'll also take a look at why VenueTune and what the VenueTune workflow is, and then we'll jump into the software live, and you can watch me configure some systems, and we'll try and leave some time for Q&A at the end. So Voltera D models. Voltera D, is a simple and efficient and effective way to drive Biamp loudspeakers. This is, in part due to access to our new Alamos library of loudspeaker presets. It is our largest loudspeaker profile library ever, supporting Voltera D and DM. There's 237 loudspeaker presets total. We give you options in there for different crossover frequencies between full range cabinets and subwoofers. You of course get tap options, for 70 volt, 100 volt systems. And this just makes it really easy to drop in a factory preset, which contains, initial equalization, high pass filters and limiter configurations to ensure you're deploying the systems with the optimal speaker settings. Voltera D amplified loudspeaker controllers are configured and managed from a standard network connection with support for multiple network media protocols in addition to analog input sources. We're going to be concentrating on just the Dante portion and the analog input portion today. There's with an all network-based configuration, there's no external gain level controls or switches for somebody to fiddle with once we get the system commissioned. You got to be plugged into the amp, to do anything with it. We have 4 models in the Voltera D series. We've got our 24-4, which symmetrically is 4 by 600 watts or up to 1800 watts on a single output. We've got our 1204, which is 4 by 300 channels. We can get up to 900 watts on a single output with power sharing. We've got 2 8-channel versions also, a 2408 and a 1208. So we've got a 2400 watt total power supply available, or 1200 watts total supply available, and we can dynamically shift that. I shouldn't say dynamically. We can shift that power around through power sharing to create optimal size amplifier channels, when needed. Each channel can drive low impedance or 70 volt, 100 volt, and they can do it in any combination at any time. So you're not stuck with having an entire amplifier in constant voltage mode or low impedance mode. You can by channel select whatever meets your needs. So when I'm referring to Voltera D here, we're actually want to include both the D and the DM variants. Voltera D and M are functionally the same when we're just considering it as an amplified loudspeaker controller. The DM differs in that it includes the full performance of a standalone DSP inside of it, available for use for those of you that are using Tessera software. So that's in addition to the processing that is required just to do the loudspeaker presets. We also have some different power levels available in the DM series. We have a couple of 2-channel models, which again, we've got power sharing available, so we can create larger channels if that's beneficial for our situation. We have a smaller model of, a 4x150. And we also have a 1200.4 and a 2400.4, which are similar to D, but notice there's no 8-channel models within the DM class of products. Same applications can be served, mixture of low impedance or 70-volt channels, for the DM also. And as I mentioned, integrates a DSP power of a Forte X on top of the necessary loudspeaker processing inside of the system. So let's jump into this quick here. Voltera D and power sharing. If you need it, you need it. If you don't, that's quite okay. But first things first, a modern amplifier with all these capabilities needs a great power supply design, and we have that. A lot of design choices went into this, but a strong power supply is a must. Power supply technology is what really makes amplifiers tick these days. Most amplifier models out there, have rails that drop when they, deliver power, leading to reduced power, as well as, potentially unwanted clipping when you exceed those rails. Voltera D uses a design that maintains our rail voltage, power, and current continuously within the system, and one channel, will not affect the other if it is being used at its maximum output. So we've allocated plenty of power, and how you decide to share that around, should you use it that way, not going to run into any issues. You can go back and refer to all these numbers later on if you care to, but the things that I want to point out here is we have high voltage and high current headroom on the amplifier channel. That means we don't need to bridge channels to support 100 volts or to get high output power into 4 or 8 ohms. Our channels aren't bridgeable, don't need to be. We can have power levels through power sharing of up to 1600 watts into 8 ohms from a 2400.4. And this is something that there's plenty of multi-kilowatt amplifiers out there that can't, they just cannot do this. So and we also don't have to resort to bridge mode and the potential complexities for the field folks, and they're trying to get their polarity correct and figuring out what pin goes to what. We just don't need to. So we've got flexibility if necessary to allocate the power to the speakers that need it in VenueTune. So power shading on a channel, if we were to shade a channel down 3 dB, all right, that halves the power. Take it down -6 dB, a quarter of the power for that channel. Plenty of scenarios, where you could need that. looking at some of the 2400 and 1200 watt D channels here, we can have up to 1200 watts on a single channel. 4 times the symmetrical power, on an 8-channel amp out of 1 channel. Great for driving those subwoofers and things that there might be only one in an installation. I've got lots of zones with other small strings of speakers. Same thing with the 1200.8, 4 times the symmetrical power, or 50% of the total power supply available. Again, these power levels, we've got a bucket, we got a bucket of power, whether it's a 2400 watt amp, a 1200 watt amp, 600 watt amp. We can't exceed that maximum. So the math has to make sense in the end, but pretty easy. And here, just highlighting our 4-channel models. They support 3 times the power, or 75% of the total power supply available to be assigned into a single channel. And yeah, make that easy. And the two channel models, when you're looking at the DMs, boy, we can get almost the full power into a single channel, if that meets the needs of our installation. So enough on the big graphs. Quick overview here. Symmetrical power. Often we have different power needs across channels and installations. Sometimes symmetrical power, works great. We've been doing it for decades, and that's fine and good. But where we do have different power requirements, that's where power sharing can provide flexibility and cost savings. Just buy the size amp you need, power share, what you need, to a channel, rather than buying a much larger, expensive amp. So the asymmetrical power is the additional power that each channel, can source, assuming the power supply has it available to give. With power sharing, the focus is on the total power and the total channel count. The dB reduction of the limiters is how we're achieving our power shading. Is the way to go to direct power to the speakers that need more, or potentially need less. Again, we've got very high voltage, high current headroom in the amplifier. So this means we don't need to think about bridging channels to support 100 volt or to get a couple kilowatts from a single channel. Easier for installers not to bridge. And also we may be able to just use a single 1 RU amplifier, or at least one of the appropriate chassis power more easily. All right, let's take a look at a small scale example of power sharing and its benefits here. So let's consider a small house of worship. It's got a pair of left-right mains, a subwoofer, and some small delays for the rear of the room. So stereo front, left, right. Okay, got a single subwoofer mounted somewhere, and we got some delays. Design decision was to just leave those mono for the back of the room. So the main left-right speakers can handle 600 watts each, but through our mapping and looking in ease focus, okay, probably don't need 102 dB in the space, as it's a fairly traditional surface with light music content. So we know we could probably shave that down a little bit. Subwoofer, yeah, we're pretty much always fully powering subs. And delays, yeah, we just need enough to fill in the back of the room, get some intelligibility back there. So without power sharing, there's a good chance you're purchasing a 4-channel amp to meet the needs of the subwoofer. Might even be bridging channels, and wait, I need 4 channels. So now I'm into another amplifier. All right, well, with ours, we'll just look at, okay, 1200 watts for the subwoofer is the greatest requirement. So with power sharing in the Voltera D, we can consider a 2404 with 2400 watts of chassis power available. So taking a peek in VenueTune early here. So here's a possible scenario. So we can power shade to optimize channels for the venue. I mentioned that we've got more full range energy than likely required for the space. So we're going to shade down the house left and the right full range speakers 2 dB. Basically putting power back into the reservoir. The limiters for those channels are going to be dropped 2 dB in the background to preserve 4 dB of amplifier headroom. Subwoofer, going to leave that at 0. I always want all the subwoofer, imagine that. And the fills, we don't need much. We don't need that much in the back of the room. So we're actually going to shade those down 9 dB. So by shading, here's how we've allocated the power to our 2404. Channel 1 and 2, left, right. We've shaded them down, couple dB off the 600 watts. So we reserve 400 watts by doing that power shading. For the delays, we shaded those way down, 9 dB, 520 watts. Give or take a little bit. So we saved a lot of power there, and that leaves us plenty of power on our output channel 4 of 1200 watts to do this installation. I've allocated, a total of 2080 watts. That means I actually have a little bit I could potentially give back here or there, but in general, it's just an example of how power shading, can help you fit an installation into an amplifier. Just think about speakers and amps and channels, and possibly a reduction in the amount of equipment in the rack. All right, let's take a look at some of the hardware features here. So front panel, got a power indicator. This will show green if powered from mains or PoE backup. We'll touch base on PoE power option a little bit, but not a power switch. Looks like one. It's not one. System status indicators. I'm not going to go through all the information here, but we monitor our system status continuously, and through these 4 LEDs, without opening up software, you can have a really good idea of the health of your amp and your system. We have our locate button, little pin that we're used to seeing for maps and things of that sort there. We can press that on the front of the amplifier, and assuming the amplifier is connected to the VenueTune's software, it'll identify itself on this screenshot below from the VenueTune software. And the other way around, I can tick the little lightning bolt under locate if I've got a few different amplifiers in an installation. Okay, which one am I working on? Especially if they're the same model number. I don't want to go search what serial number is what, guys. Push the button. All right, which one has 4 green LEDs on the left there flashing? All 4 of those vertical LEDs, alarm activity status, ALS, will blink green when you push locate, and they'll stop blinking when you unlocate it. So easy to identify which amplifier you're actually poking at the moment. Channel status indicators, again, not going to go through them in great detail here. Take a look. There's 4 LEDs there, and depending on which column we're looking at, we have off. Some of them use green, some of them use yellow, some use red, some use all the different colors of the rainbow to give you the various status of those channels live at a moment's glance without having to look into the software. So Biamp loves to keep you informed, and when you walk up to a system, you get an idea what's going on or where I need to start poking at first, whether I'm initially commissioning the system or if I'm doing just a site health visit. Front grille and filter access. Important stuff. Make sure you clean your filters on a scheduled basis. I'm just going to leave it at that. But the filters are behind the front grille on the Voltera D and the DMs. We have analog inputs on all of our systems. Little screenshot below out of VenueTune. I'll see this again later, showing the analog inputs. They are line level only. There's no echo cancellation for you conferencing folks. Sorry, that's a whole different chip and things of that sort. So they're standard line level inputs, you know, for our Voltera. One input per output, whether it's 2, 4, or 8, you know, 8 channels, you get that many analog inputs, of course. And we also support failover from networked media to analog. So if you do decide to drive your system, you know, with Dante, which is the only digital transport supported in VenueTune, you can have it fail over to an analog signal should the media stream go away, and you take the time to run that balanced cable for backup from whatever your source is. Yeah, it'll fail over to analog. When the digital stream returns, it'll go back to that. Again, that was covered in more detail in David Berkey's Tessera-centric webinar from a couple weeks ago. If you've got questions about, you know, Tessera interactions and using, you know, paging mics or switching, you know, various, you know, control from our Ampera side, take a look at that webinar because that will get into those details. All right, loudspeaker outputs, 2, 4, or 8, 2-channel models are only available in the DM series, and 8 channels only available in Voltera D. Logic IO not addressable in the VenueTune software. Again, it's, you know, for Tessera software, it functions, you know, similarly to the Logic IO found on Tessera Forte and server devices. GPIO, on the other hand, you know, we do have this dedicated functionality. Pin 1 to ground will trigger a mute across all channels. Plain old simple switch, need to mute the system. Okay, easy, go for it. No configuration and software necessary. Pin 2 will go low on detection of a major alarm in the amplifier. Pin 3 will go low if the unit is in standby mode, which isn't currently supported, but will be soon for your monitoring use. And pin 4 to ground will put the unit into standby. This is also coming soon with a firmware update. Networking in Voltera D. Again, I have an abbreviated version here, you know, for VenueTune use. 2 network ports. Port 1 supports communications from Tessera or VenueTune software, and it would also be utilized in separate control and media network technologies, or maybe situations where only an analog source inputs are required. An interesting detail is the PoE plus support on port 1. If power is lost on site and the network switches are on a battery backup and PoE is applied from that port, it can keep the DSP and brains alive in the amplifier, greatly reducing the restart time once mains power is reestablished for the amplifier. Takes about 8 or 10 seconds for it to come back if you're using this PoE option to keep the DSP alive within it. So P1 is the main control interface for separated control and media topologies, and they must be connected to different broadcast domains. Again, this is more of a Tessera thing probably. My target here with this webinar is my VenueTune crowd that's, you know, probably just has 1 or 2 amps to configure in a system and not using a Tessera on the front end. A lot of powerful things you could do with Tessera, or the DMs, the Tessera built-in. I encourage you to check out the training page on Biamp.com and get that Tessera certification so that you can really exploit the full capabilities of everything being in one box. So P1 supports that. Port number 2, this is a connection for Dante AES67 media networks. And AVB, which is only available with Tessera configuration. I use this as my main control interface because I'm usually doing single cable, to these systems. With VenueTune, we get Dante only and analog. We don't get AES67 and we don't get AVB. Again, see the Tessera webinar for more information on those. VenueTune configuration files. So of course, there's a file that, when we program an amplifier or a group of amplifiers that we can save to our PC on site when we're done doing configuration. At this time, we cannot retrieve those from a Voltera D. Again, software, it's firmware, it will evolve in the coming months. But for the time being, you got to save these and archived. What do I mean by archived? Well, I don't know. Put it with the project file, on site with the IT department or whoever owns the system on site. Put that VenueTune file on a flash drive for them, or get them to store it to their network in case somebody needs to visit the site again. Because if you visit the site again, or somebody in a year visits the site again, for the time being, at least, they're going to need this. They're going to need this file if they want to go in and edit the system. Otherwise, basically, you got to start from scratch if you don't have this. So whether you put it on a flash drive and tape it inside the rack, or lock it in the drawer, or give it to the the system owner to have, hopefully you're at least archiving them on your servers back at the office for this project, so that if somebody needs to visit again, they can get into it. Volteras are VenueTune ready out of the box. No further configuration necessary. Plug in, it'll find the Voltera Ds on the network, and you can get to work. You Tessera folks, you got to clear the configuration if you're approaching a Voltera D. Not a big deal. We do it all the time. If you start messing with it in Tessera and then need to revert back to VenueTune, well, you got to pinhole reset it. If somebody, I'll just leave it at that. VenueTune files are saved as a .bws extension file, so Biamp workspace file. And this is that initial input configuration that I referred to down here. Just pictorially, you've got a 2-channel, a 4-channel, or an 8-channel Dante input, pre-configured, but also in parallel with this, not necessarily in parallel. It's one or the other on a bi-channel basis. You have your analog inputs. You have 2, 4, or 8 analog inputs also. Signal flow inside of Voltera D. First, we have our input priority routers. The first thing that a Voltera D is going to look for is a Dante signal in our case. If it doesn't see a Dante signal, it's going to revert to analog. And this is also how it does its failover. Networked audio goes away. It'll flip over to analog, or you can just force it over to analog to begin with. A lot of my customers that currently use our ALC line of amplified loudspeaker controllers are using single amps a site or a couple amplifiers a site, use this feature already. I also know a lot of you really just need a single analog input to your system, depending on what sort of large or medium-sized venue it is. We also get, gain, delay, and trim in that input block, which we saw earlier and we will see again. User adjustments for VenueTune, we get 16 raised cosine EQ filters. Raised cosine EQ filters function a bit differently than your standard parametric filters that you may be used to. Say they're much higher precision, especially when we start working in the low frequency domain. We can still adjust the Q width and the gain and all that stuff as you used to, but much higher precision with raised cosine filters, and in the low frequency bands. We have up to 2 seconds of delay, on these systems. You can adjust gain, mute, polarity, and you can see your meters also. The stuff you can't get to that's also in here, this is for our speaker presets. This is locked away safely. When you recall a preset, this is our stuff we get to use in these presets. Again, they're all protected in there, and they provide a really good starting point, for commissioning of your system. Power supply output, we have logging. If you leave the software running, we've got power usage profiles. How quickly does the amplifier switch to more conservative power draw, quiescent power draw. We log temps, main voltage, main current, and we can also look at on each of our speaker outputs, headroom, temperature, voltage, power, and I'm sure there's more features to come. So still very complete, for this, for VenueTune, for this, standalone software. IP addressing. So this is something you may or may not need to. If you need to get into it, just depends on your site conditions. If we want to get into the network settings, well, first of all, a Voltera D or DM amp shows up out of the box. Just looking for DHCP. Plug it into your switch, or you can plug it directly into your laptop, and it'll do link local, and you'll be able to find the devices. If you need to get into the network settings and change to a static IP, we would do that from the hamburger. We could go to adapter settings, device settings, set your static IP. Say DHCP might be fine for small installs, 1 and 2 amp installs, but depending on policy, or if you're on a converged network, they might want you to live in a certain place. So easy to get to from the main menu. We can also go to our the IP address. If we enter a static IP, it'll be associated with each virtual amplifier during the design phase, within VenueTune. Note that we can't change Dante IP settings or change the naming within VenueTune, generally following Tessera rules. So once we link and we're using a static IP, that IP address will be reflected to our online amplifiers if we set statics. If it's DHCP, it's going to be whatever your server doles out. So simple. We don't have to be networking wizards here. We just have to know how to turn the network online switch on and link to an amplifier that's connected to our network. All right. So Voltera D said it supports AS67 and AVB, but in VenueTune we're only working with Dante. We got 32 by 32 channels of Dante available, and we also support 96 kilohertz sample rate down conversion should you need that. VenueTune supports DHCP, API-PA, or static address assignment. Of the P1 port, the Dante interface on the P2 port supports DHCP AP IPA assignment. Static IP address assignment is not available for Dante interface. And yeah, enough on networking. It's easy. We have to keep it easy. All right, software options. Again, we're sticking to VenueTune here, but on the Tessera side, you may want to use Tessera software if you want to do a custom-built, custom-built systems where we're hosting various expanders, controllers. You want to do custom design, input processing. You want to create your own speaker. You got to do that in the Tessera software. You can have it available, you can create it in this Tessera software, and as long as it gets transferred to the machine that you're taking out into the field, you could still make use of it in the field, just get it onto that machine. But the creation of custom speakers is only supported in the Tessera software. And the other notes here, as mentioned, we have a lot of flexibility with the Tessera software, and you can really exploit the full power of the DM amps with the Tessera software. So VenueTune software, this is targeted to the person, deploying the system that we really want to come at this from a loudspeaker perspective, and do groupings of loudspeakers on our control screen. Want to do simple but very powerful grouping of speakers, grouping of groups. If you're just using analog inputs, all you really need is the VenueTune software. Select some speakers, decide what's going where. You can use Dante in conjunction with analog for failover, as I mentioned previously also. All right, moving kind of fast. Let's see, I had a question here. Does the latency through the device change based on the FIR filter settings? I believe our latency is constant through the system. We've allocated, I think 2.7 milliseconds. All right, let's get daring here. Let's open VenueTune. I've talked enough about it. So now, all righty. So I'm going to start a new project here. And of course, I'm going to start a new project here. If I select my correct incidence of VenueTune, here we go. All right. So VenueTune software, download it from Biamp.com. Easy to find. So we're presented with a number, phases, as we like to call them, and phases, like the design phase, has these actions associated, with each of these phases. At any time, if you want to know, what are my options, you can, and it's not going to show up on my screen right here, of course, but you can select any of these phases or any action and hit F1 on your keyboard, and it will pop up a help menu, for that particular phase or action that you're working on at the moment. So select whichever one you want to, hit F1, and the help file will provide guidance. So VenueTune's designed to be easy to learn, fast to use. It's organized to follow what we consider the user journey through the 4 main phases of a project. We have the design phase, where we create the system to verify what's needed. We have our deploy phase, which transfers the design to the system and validates it. We have our optimize phase where we do equalization, gain changes, polarity, delay, all that good stuff. And we have our use phase for monitoring and logging. So main benefits of this phase and actions type of user journey is you can place the loudspeaker and control objects in a user interface that emulates the actual deployment. We can import a background image, which I'll show you. And we could do grouping of speakers. Each loudspeaker could be a member of up to 8 groups for large deployments. And we can address those as a group for equalization or address loudspeakers independently. So let's start doing something here. I've talked enough about it. So the first thing I'm doing, so I'm in my design phase. I'm on my speakers tab, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add some speakers. Add speaker screen pops up. I can search, by family, by line, by model. I'm going to go for EX S6 from our DeSono family. And notice here a lot of options for preset crossovers, within these systems. So depending on your system and if you're including subwoofers or not with your full range speakers, we're giving you 2 to 4 choices of reasonable crossover frequencies to start from. For this system, I'm going to select an 80 hertz crossover because I'm going to select a subwoofer later on. My mode over here. Do I want low Z? Do I want high Z? Down here parallel, it tells me I can do a maximum of 3, on a channel, and I can even access power shading from this screen. But let's not get lost in all the minutia. There's more than I can get to in the allocated time. So I'm going to go with 40 watt tap, 70 volts, 3 speakers, and I'm gonna create it. And it pops up on my screen to the left here. Shows my speaker, my speaker, speaker number 1. Oh, I can double click on that and change it. I can change the name of that if I want to, just by clicking on it. I know, okay, it's room number 1, but I can go here to the right. I can see what model it is. Okay, the name it's room number 1. There's the model. If I was connected to an amp, I could see the health. This little 3 in the lower right-hand corner, that indicates that there's 3 speakers on that chain. And I also have a convenient mute button here also. Let's add some more speakers. Oh, by the way, you see that, over here now remove is activated. We could remove the speaker if we chose to, but I'm going to add more speakers. And I'm going to do not the company name, EX-S S10 subwoofers, and let's see here. Let's do an 80 hertz crossover. I'm going to go 2 of those at low Z. Not going to worry about the other options. And let's add some more EX-S6s. These are going to be full range. They're going to be in a different room. And we'll do 6 of them on that chain, and let's just do 6 on another chain also. So have a look at the name here. I'm going to name this. So these are the room 1. There's the room 1 speakers. And this is going to be my room 2. And let's do room 3. Now room 1. So I'm in my speakers action in my design phase. Let's put these into a group, room 1. I want to affect all the room 1 speakers together with equalization and gain at some point. So I've got my group 1 down here. I click assign, and then I assign the speakers I want to that group. And they're assigned, and I can call this room 1. So now I have 1 control I have you know, one control here. If I click on assign again, we see that it's the room 1 speakers that were, you know, that were assigned to. And that room 1 had 3 full ranges and 2 subwoofers. Room 2, we'll let that be, and we'll let room 3 be also. Now it's time to select an amplifier. So I want to add an amplifier. Just because it's what I have on my network, I'm going to go for a 2400.4, and I hit create. So I have my amplifier within my workspace now. My IP settings are under here. It tells me that it's set for dynamic IP settings. I could look at the model over here, and if I was connected, I could look at the health, but currently it's still a virtual amplifier. So added my amplifier. It's called, you know, it's called rack 1. If I have multiple amplifiers, you know, across a venue, I might put amps in locations. You know, this, you know, by clicking the button in the upper left corner, we'll say this amp happens to be in location IDF number 1, which can be helpful later. Our next action is we need to match speakers to our amplifier. So we go to our match tab, and in room 1, I'm going to match to channel 1, and the low frequency, I'm going to match this by clicking on it. What do we got here? Amplifier minus 0.06 dB. So what this is telling me is that for the speakers that I have chosen on that channel, assuming I'm just running a symmetrical power, it's 0.6 of a dB low to reach their published output. I don't have to worry about that right now, but if I got into power, if I get into power shading, maybe I shave a dB off one of these other zones if I want all the subwoofer, putting a little bit of gas back into the tank. I'm going to match this. So, oops, I did that wrong. So we will match that, and we'll match that, and I did not match my amplifiers match exactly how I wanted to. So we got amplifier 1 there. Got match, you know. Sorry. Here's what happens when you do things live occasionally. Channel 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So got that. If I go to my next tab, my configuration. Again, I'm not online yet, but it's showing me the basic information about what I've designed here. I can go to speaker. I can see which amps are on which channels. The next phase is my deploy phase. So if I click on deploy, I'm presented with the amplifiers that happen to be on my network. Before deploying, I have to go online with the network. So turn my network switch to online here in the deploy phase, because I need to now link my virtual amplifier to a physical amplifier. And we'll see how this goes. I think I've got 6 or 7 hops between me and the amp room, so I can link. And it's only going to link to an amplifier that I built it to, so 2400.4. I click on that amplifier. It says that it's linking, and it's transferring the data. And so now that amplifier is physically linked. We could see the checkbox here. It's physically linked to this. The DSP settings are uploaded to the amplifier. So in my deploy stage, I can look at my speakers. I can get into power shading if I want to. I could make up for this if I chose. Shows me how many speakers are in parallel, per system. I can now look at my inputs in the action tab. I can look which speaker. I can select which speaker do I want assigned to which input. On this system, I've only got signal on input 1. It's reverted to to analog because I do not have a digital network signal going into it. And this just tell everything to listen to So if we select this, and I want that just to be on input number 1 for room 1. That one's already on input number 1. I'll unmute this, mute this. Room 2 is now on input number 1. Room 3, we're going to mute that because, again, I only have input on number 1, so I'm assigning input 1 across all devices. During my commissioning phase, I can also, once my amps are linked, once amplifiers are linked, I have a solo mode. I have a noise generator that I can make use of in here, and I can go in and send pink noise, your level adjustments right here, one by one to the channels, or I can do it, with my group send also. I can solo. So optimize. So my optimize phase, look at power shading and adjust that in real time if I care to. I can mute and unmute. Notice for my group here, if I mute one output, one amplifier output, it's going to reflect as orange on here, or I can control the entire group with this one. So mutes, simple to get to. Gains, I can adjust gain, with my little keypad in here, select -2, sure if you choose to. Again, I can still look at, what's the name of my speaker. I can look at the model of the speaker, and I can look at the health. This one, don't have a load connected to it at the moment. Under the optimize action, I can also add delay. I can dial in whatever delay I choose to, up to 2 seconds on an amplifier output. I can work with polarity if I choose to, change the entire group polarity, or a single speaker within the group, or individuals. Again, if I choose to. And equalization. So here, I can choose to equalize just, this speaker, or maybe I make it easier myself because it happens to work out. In my group, my room 1 group here, I can add an EQ filter, whatever I might need to. You can drag and drop, adjust the width of your filter. You have gain adjustment. You also have delay, and you have polarity adjustment in here. And I can add whatever filters I might need, and these are applied to the group, which affects both channels that are part of that group. So I can also just click on an individual speaker, and you can see signal level happening there, and add a filter. Yeah, no problem. We'll do, we can do that, and we can go to filter 2 and do something here. If they're not, if speakers aren't part of a group, but you're doing similar things, similar acoustic circumstances, you can copy the EQ filters, then you can paste to within similar speakers if you choose to. We could delete filters. We have choices of, shelving filters, high shelving filters, or a high pass filter if you need to customize something that may not have come up as part of a, one of the library presets. If you need a different high pass frequency, you can layer this on top and, have a high pass filter of your choosing and a slope of your choosing also for you advanced users. So that's our optimize phase. And the use phase, this is where we can see the monitoring of each amplifier output. We can look at output peaks, power average, power peaks. Just pick the system. Since I don't have a load on this amp, it's not showing me some of the information, but much of it is still accessible. So it gives you a 2 hour graph here on the system, and plenty of information to digest. All right, I went through a lot there, but I'm going to start a new project. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import a picture. Let's see if I can import a picture. Let's do a small warehouse here. So when I import a picture, I can scale it up. I can scale it up and down. I can move, I can move it around the screen. Yep, common file formats are supported. So now I've placed a picture within my space here. So I'm back in my design phase. First thing to do in my design phase is to add some speakers. So we got a simple warehouse here, kind of here nor there what it is, but I'm going to select speakers. I'm going to use R25 speakers. I'm going to use them full range mode. I'm going to use them at 25 watts, 70 volts. And I'm going to select 8 of them to start, because I've got 8 of them for this aisle, 8 of them for this aisle. Okay. So we'll place this one here because these speakers are aisle 1. I'll call it aisle AB. So that amplifier channel is addressing aisle AB. We'll double click on this, aisle CD. And there's 8 speakers, 4 speakers per aisle on that one. Yeah, we need to add some more speakers here. Do full range. I'm going to do 8. Let's see, full range, low Z. It says, hey, we can only do a maximum of 2 speakers. It's smart that way. It's not going to let you do something the amplifier really wants nothing to do with. By the way, it tells you the parallel maximum could be up to 56 with power sharing. But I'm going to do 8 speakers again and 8 speakers again. And I'm also going to add 4 speakers for another area, 4 for another area. So speaker 3, okay, that's for those aisles. Speaker number 4, we could place down here. Speaker 5, maybe that's our loading dock. And speaker 6, that's our receiving area. I could go in here and label these as I choose to. I've also got some offices, so we're going to add some CM10 ceiling speakers at 2.5 watts. We'll add 4 and 4. So I've got 2.5 watt speakers. I'll put those over the offices. Here you'll see in the right-hand lower corner, there's 4 speakers on that chain, and we've got the receiving office. They've got 4 speakers there too. So I go through and label all of these if I choose to, but I'm not going to take the time because I'm almost out of time. I can now create groups. I can assign a group. Let's create the warehouse group so that everything on this group Actually, we're just going to do that one. So that's the warehousing space. I'm done assigning. I'm going to add another group, and this one's going to be the offices. So type Dave. And that's warehouse. And I know I'm going over time, my apologies. I just want to show you all the cool stuff we can do though. All right. Amplifiers. Now I need to add an amplifier that can run this. I'm gonna go with an 8-channel amplifier. And my next action that I have to do is I need to match speakers to amplifier outputs. Notice the groups, you can't match that to an output. That's just a control group. So let's match that to channel 1. Let's match this to channel 2. Match that to channel 3. Match this to channel 4. We'll do our receiving dock here. That dock there. Main offices, lucky number 7, and the receiving office 8. So at this point, we're where we want to deploy our system. So now I need to link my amplifier to the amplifier I chose, which is a 2400.8, by the way. Go over here, look at the model. And there's one of my design. When I turn network to online and hit the link button, I've got my one for VenueTune only here. I click on it. It's linking, it's uploading the nominal EQ settings, the limiter settings, and everything, to the amplifier. I am now linked. From here, I can look at and assign inputs to each of my area. Nominally, it's spread out. 8 output channels. It's spread them all out to 8 channels. I could tell everything. I could tell them just by unmuting the channel. Which channel do I want it to listen to, or do I want to listen to 1 and 2? So I can click through these and just unmute the channel that I want these systems to be listening to. I can do any sort of sum I want, but you're just doing it with the mute button, with the mute buttons down here. And oh, by the way, my analog input is only on 1. If I want to go, I can select any of these I choose, or I can do 1 to all, which I probably wouldn't do here, but just for the example, I've now taken, analog input 1 is to all, or go back to 1 to 1, and I can assign things, as I choose to go through the system here. I can go to my solo mode, during commissioning, check things out. Power profile, live performance, something, for always up system, always going great. Live green will cut the, when the amplifier is just sitting there waiting for something to do, it'll cut the power consumption, roughly in half. Go to the configuration, gives me information about, how much of the amplifier am I using? Is it online? What's my firmware? Here's my IP addresses. What speakers match to what? Do I have PoE backup going on? Is there networked audio? No, there's not networked audio right now. So a lot of information in that tab. I can click to my speakers. I can see what speakers where. I can see in the lower right corner how many are on the chain. I can mute and unmute them this way also. I can mute the entire warehouse group if I choose to. I can mute the office group, which I assigned these to. Next phase is usually going to be the optimize phase. Again, we want to start turning turning amplifier outputs down. This is the place to do it. Attenuate only at this point. Mutes, yep, we can do that. You see the group indicate, it's a member of this warehouse group, so it goes orange. I can go to gain for the output. Now here, I do have the ability to add, go plus or minus on the gain of any of these amplifier outputs up to 12 dB. Delay, dial in the delay as needed, up to 2 seconds per output. Outdoor folks doing larger stadiums will appreciate that. And again, EQ. If I want to EQ an entire group, I click on my warehouse group. Let's get rid of, and dial in whatever EQs I need, and all the speakers in the warehouse group will then have this EQ assigned to them. I can do EQ if I've got a different acoustic condition. You see, from my group filter here, if I got a different condition over here for some reason, I can do additive EQ that only affects that particular speaker within that space, or that particular output channel within that space. We are constantly, say this product's new. We're updating firmware, updating software, updating feature sets. We're just scratching the surface of the capabilities of Voltera D and Voltera DM here at the onset. They will evolve. If you've got questions for specific questions regarding this webinar, operation of VenueTune, here's my email address. If you have feature requests, you can feel free to forward them to me also. I'll forward them on to the team. And I hope this was informative. It was a lot to get through in a short time. There's other things in there, but we're going to wrap this one up for right now. So thank you very much for attending, and look forward to being in touch on any questions. Have yourself a great day.